All right, perfect. We're good. So joining me for a little conversation today, I have Sean McAuley. Hope I said that last name right. Did I, Sean?
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
perfect. I got put in touch with Sean from Mike Mackey, who is at Gullen, who I spoke with a couple of weeks ago on this. Thanks for putting us in touch, Mike. Sean is currently a first-team coach over at Bonnyrigg. He's also East Lothian coordinator for the SFA. So we'll kind of dig into some of those things and we'll talk about it. Sean, thanks for coming on and joining me.
No, thanks very much for inviting me on, and hopefully I don't bore you too much.
No, you definitely won't. It'll be a good conversation, and you know, anyone that listens, I'm sure, certainly if they're coaches or players, will get a little something out of it. So we'll be good. So where I kind of start with everyone, Sean, like I said to you before we hit recording, is just kind of asking, where did you kind of, you know, and how did you kind of fall in love with football? First of all, when you were a kid, and how has that led to where you're at now?
I would definitely have to be down to my dad, who is an absolute football fanatic. He's a season ticket holder still at Celtic, and he's been following them for years. So as early as I can remember, always having a ball. If I probably spoke to my mum, she would say I would take a ball everywhere from
Right.
as early an age as they probably can go back to. Probably from walking, all I wanted was a ball and wanted to be kicking the ball. So probably comes from that, of a dad who was football daft, and that probably obviously I picked up on that. My older brother was the same, so we used to always be having little kickabouts in the house, in the garden, constantly playing, and then that probably carried on into school. Going back to primary school, kids in my class were all football daft as well, and every playtime, every lunch break would be playing football in the playground. So that would probably be where the earliest memories and where it started from there. Just playing games, just playing in the street, playing with your pals, playing with my dad, and that's probably what instilled that love of the game.
That's class. It's you know, everyone that I've had on so far has probably been I'm 27, so everyone that I've had on so far to ask about this has been a little bit older than me. I'm not too sure how old you are, but I feel like everyone's got those kind of similar stories, and I think it'll be interesting, like asking kids now in 10 years' time, like what their thing was, because I don't know if kids do everything you've just said as much as they do anymore. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like my oldest son, he's 7 and he's in primary 2 now, and he probably started going to football classes from about 2 to 3, and it didn't really capture it straight away. And I think back to when I was younger, was it almost you're trying to push them into things a little bit more now? There's so many, like, I was a kid, we didn't have mini kickers classes, we didn't have these soccer centres, and didn't probably join a football club till I was about 7 or 8 when you first join a club, and it feels a wee bit more serious then. Whereas he probably could take it or leave it. So through lockdown and everything else, he hadn't been at his football, so you kind of think he wasn't too fussed, whereas now he's just went back in the last week or two, and he's so much enthusiasm for it now. So it's funny, I don't know if it's that little bit older, and maybe just being restricted to what he can do, that actually it's something he can get out there and do now, that he's starting to fall in love with it a little bit. His enthusiasm's far more now, desperate to go to training, and he's having kickabouts in the playground more as well with his pals. So it is interesting. I think there's so many opportunities to play it now that it almost gets forced upon kids, rather than they get that opportunity just to fall in love with it for himself.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think that I certainly noticed that out in America was like you just said here. There's almost so much for them at such a young age that you know, like you say, the only option you kind of had was to go out and play with your friends at the park and at school and on the street. Whereas now there are classes you can take them to, you can drop them off, which, you know, we can get into a little bit later, which I think then creates different types of players, right? And how they're then being coached, because they're not just learning it on the street anymore. they're from the age of 5 and 6 being put in like a a controlled environment where everything is kind of taught and they're not just freely kind of going through it, which I guess kind of has its good and bad, right? I mean, as everything does, but yeah.
I think it probably comes back to this argument about street football doesn't happen anymore. And I probably agree and disagree with it. If I go down to any of the 3G pitches around East Lothian, you'll probably find loads of kids are kicking about and having their games of football without any adult influence there. But do you see the kids kicking a ball in the back street? Probably not in the same way. They're more likely to want to go down to a 3G pitch with the goals and the nice surface than play on the concrete or the car park or whatever else it was when I was younger. So I think you're right. There's an element of me and my brother would just go out and kick about in the street, and you bump into other kids and say, right, do you want to take on? And before you know it, you've got a 2v2 game going on a patch of grass just up the road from your house that you've just started for yourself, and it's not taking any adults to create that environment. It's just happened naturally. Whereas if everything that kids are attending now for football is in a controlled environment, then it's maybe not letting that sort of freedom of creativity or expression to come out in those kids, because it's maybe on a coach's command most of the time.
Yeah, it definitely is. I always found that, like, and certainly in America, because their culture isn't the same as it is here, right? Like, it's not a football culture. They have so many sports. American football is huge, baseball is huge, hockey's huge. So there's so much to choose from that, like, trying to coach in a way to give the kids the freedom like we're talking about without it being so structured was really difficult. Also because of how their culture is they quite like things being structured. Like, everything is very structured over there. So, like I say, it just creates a different environment, different type of players, different type of kids. Because me and my friends always talk about, like, you see the games on Sky, the big Prem games that get advertised, and they show you the highlights of, like, Man United, Arsenal, where, like, Roy Keane and Vieira are kicking each other, and you're looking at the montage and you're like, the game's not anything like that anymore. It's not even close to it. And probably for reasons that we're talking about now, is like, kids just aren't in that rough and tumble environment as much as they used to be, that it's more controlled.
Yeah, I think you probably, if you look at some of the youth academy setups and certainly some of the ones I've visited down in England at the top level, they talk about the kids not being robust enough because they're just driven by playing football all the time, and they're probably not experiencing the going out and climbing trees and falling off trees or playing different sports as much, that just develops a bit more robustness around playing the sport. So there's loads of things. It's funny you mentioned America there. I done that back in, what would it be, 2006. Went out and done it for 4 or 5 months, and I often felt that was the case, that parents are paying for sessions out there, and it is, we are paying you to teach our kids to become, maybe not necessarily become footballers, but it was almost that demand of you need to be teaching constantly. And I think sometimes in coaching, it's guiding. Yes, you are educating and you're teaching, but it's trying to guide them that little bit, because you step on a football pitch and those kids need to make decisions for themselves, and there's probably thousands of decisions that go through their head in a game of football. So for you to just be telling them absolutely everything that they must do, then is not going to help them when they step on a pitch. They need to find those solutions and answers themselves some of the times. And where they're struggling, that's where you then go in and you try and offer that wee bit extra guidance and support with them. Yeah,
I couldn't agree any more with that. I think that, for me and my friends talk about this a lot. I mean, one of my close friends was a very good football player and kind of, was at like Hibs and Hearts and Dunfermline for a bit, and then ended up being captain of Lothian Thistle, and only just stopped playing a couple of years ago. So he was a decent level, but we always say this, like, how much about football is just, the like feeling on the pitch and what is the right thing to do. And it's sometimes almost hard to explain. We always say that, we never really got like coached like kids do now, but we could be put in situations and you make the right decision just through the feel of playing the game a lot of the time. And like you said, certainly out in the States, and, I don't know if it's getting a little bit like that here. I think the world is, to be honest, but there's so much teaching that we're losing just that, like, that natural feel of the game. You look at, obviously, probably the greatest example is Lionel Messi, the way he moves, the way he plays, unteachable. Like, no one's coached him that. I mean, of course, he's been helped along the way being at La Masia at Barcelona, but no one's taught him how to move and how to do all that type of stuff. So it's an interesting debate. We used to have I had this guy in California at the club I was at. He was an Argentinian guy, fantastic coach, and he'd talk about climbing trees and stuff. He would talk about that, and he was big into like setting up sessions for 10 minutes at the start with just like hurdles and poles, and just having kids, like, just nothing football wise, like just have them like jump through poles and over hurdles and almost kind of mess about for 10 minutes, but you're giving them that like robustness of doing things. And he was into like doing like, somersaults, and my first reaction coming from Scotland was like, what is this? But then when you think about it, like you say, his point was the kids aren't doing this anymore. Is there a way we can maybe bring it into them for 5-10 minutes in a session that would maybe help them along? And it was just it was a different way of thinking. It was interesting.
It's funny that, because I sometimes think that, yeah, some of the football classes that we might run in East Lothian, and it's kids as young as 2 or 3 or whatever, and parents sometimes come along and expect it to be football and games of football, when actually we're just trying to get them building up their mobility skills. Can they run? Can they turn? And you introduce the ball a little bit and try and build up that relationship with the kid and the ball. But it's more developing, trying to coordination and other aspects, rather than the actual. Kids don't understand, right? It's a 2v2 game here, and you're trying to score that goal against that team. That's beyond what they can comprehend initially. It's just trying to build up those coordination skills in the first instance, because until they have that and they can run and they can move freely, then they're not then going to be able to add in dribbling with a football or kicking a football at the same time. So
exactly.
Yeah,
So for you, obviously, you mentioned before, you as a kid, you were kind of like Dundee United, Hibs, Clyde. In terms of when you were there, and all the things we're talking about, was it completely different for you? Growing up in those environments, like, was there any of the things that we've just mentioned?
I think, well, first of all, there was not the professional youth academy set up that you had. It was
Okay.
It was playing with a boys' club for me, and you would have clubs who would invite you in to train, and you would train with those professional clubs one night a week. So if it clashed with your club training, you would maybe train with your club one night and the professional club the other night. And then by the age of 15 or 16, they would then start making their decisions whether to offer you full-time contract or not with the clubs. And if not, then you would carry on playing with your boys' club. So if I think back then, I used to be training probably 3 times a week, and would play school games and club games off a weekend. So it was almost every day you were playing some sort of football.
Right. Okay. So you're always just playing anyway. I wonder. I'm assuming, again, I've not been here for a long time and not been in that environment, and I'm not too sure if you know. But I'm assuming what it is now compared to what you just said there, it's night and day in terms of if you're at Dundee United or wherever.
Yeah, well, these kids will be training probably 3 or 4 times a week.
Right.
With their game on the weekend, they'll have all the support from sports scientists and physios and coaching and analysis as well, is probably a large part of it there for them. So yeah, it's great what they're offering those kids, but it's still a challenge to be able to get kids through into first teams and getting opportunities. So it's certainly not easy. It's still that small margin or small percentage of young people that actually go on and make careers in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's like I think that's something important that like, I mean, it's hard as a child, it's hard to understand it, even as a teenager. But I was fortunate that at around 15 years old, I was just playing for my local club. Like, I wasn't like amazing or anything at all by any means. Didn't even like start or anything, but loved it. But I knew like really early on, I love football, but I'm never gonna get to any level. I'm not not athletic enough. I felt like I had the brain for it, but my body would not do what my head wanted it to do. So I was very fortunate. About 15 years old, I had one of my good friends' brothers who used to kind of volunteer, told me at 15, he said, look, like, you love football, you should look at doing coaching because you have a good brain for it. But if I'm being honest, you're not going to amount to anything more than this. And I think that, you know, one of the reasons I'm kind of wanting to do this is for kids and teenagers to understand, like, there's other paths you can go down. Like we said before you hit recording, to make it as a pro player is extremely difficult, extremely difficult. And if you have that dream, you should go chase it, absolutely. But, you know, if you hit a point where it's not looking like it's going to happen for you, or you're falling out of love with playing, you can go down so many different other avenues now with coaching or doing the analysis, like you said. It's good. I think it's a good thing that these areas are opening up for kids.
I think it's an interesting one because I always used to say I think eventually you find your level.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Whatever ambitions or aspirations you have, those who are lucky enough to play football for a career are a small minority, and they've probably been fortunate in certain things that they've been in the right place at the right time, or they've absolutely dedicated themselves and everything that they do to get them there, and they deserve those opportunities. But I always think that eventually you find your level, and whether that's playing professional or amateur, or you decide that actually it's not for you because you can't achieve the level you want to, then I think you do finally realise actually you'll play where you should be playing.
Yeah. I always used to say that to parents too, coaching the kids. I'm like, look, we'll do everything we can for them, but at the end of the day, they will fall where they probably should fall. And you know, certainly when you're working with kids and in that environment of a culture where they're paying you, like you've said, they're paying you money. There's almost like an expectation that because they're paying you the money, that their kid will get to the top, whatever that may be, right? And it's just not sports, just not the case in any sport. Like, it doesn't throw all the money at it, all the things you just said. You need to be right place, right time, you know, be absolutely 100% dedicate yourself to it, especially nowadays in terms of like the nutrition side of things. You look at the players now, they're absolutely, they're athletes first before they're even football players. So if you're not looking into that by the time you're probably early teenager and you're not dedicating yourself to that, then it's going to be extremely difficult for you to kind of push through to that next level. I agree. Where did like the coaching start for you then? So obviously you did a little bit of playing, you know, being younger. Yeah. Where did like the coaching start?
So I think I played, was lucky enough, I signed for Clyde, who were the old First Division, which is now the Championship.
Okay.
So that was the sort of first step into senior football as a player. And it was quite an interesting time because they'd just been promoted from Division 1 into the Championship. And half the squad were part-time, half the squad were full-time. So I was working in a stockbrokers at the time, and I was part-time. It was three nights a week we were playing, or training, and our matches on the weekends. And I probably played more reserve football than anything else. I got a handful of first team appearances, and I was keen to go full-time, but it probably wasn't quite working yet for that change. And after a year, East Stirling had came in and wanted to sign me, who were then in League 2, it would be. So I went there and I played there for about 5 years. And my dream was always I wanted to be a full-time footballer. And after a period of time there, it just started to just lose that little bit of enthusiasm. I was probably about 25, and thought, it's not going to happen for me. I'd had trials with one or two clubs, and nothing had came off for me. And I just started to realise, I don't think this is going to happen now. It's probably going to pass me, and I've not had that opportunity. So when I left East Stirling at 25, I was kind of in a bit of limbo as to whether I was going to keep playing or what I was going to do. So that's when I started to think more about coaching. And one of my friends had done something similar. He'd played at a very good level and started doing some coaching with kids in Edinburgh. And that sort of captured my attention when I was working full-time in an office. I only really done the job because it suited football. It didn't working
Yeah.
Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. It really never impacted me going to football on an evening or a weekend. So when I realised that playing wasn't going to be the career I'd hoped for, I then thought, well, what's next? And that's probably where I started thinking about coaching and what opportunities that would maybe bring for me. So from then, I started doing my coaching badges, and I carried on playing. I went and played in the East Scotland Leagues with Preston Athletic and then Spartans, and I just started doing my coaching badges and started doing some community coaching. And then from there, I then started to see the different opportunities that would come up for me. So I was doing a bit of sort of football classes with Edinburgh Leisure, and then I started doing some work with Celtic in the community, running football classes there for kids in the East. And then that started taking me to different places, over in Ireland delivering camps, and then went over to America, like I mentioned before, as well, to do some coaching over there as well, and that just gave me a real thirst for it that I wanted to progress and see where that could take me.
When you were doing all that stuff at the beginning, was that mostly like younger kids?
Yeah, so pretty much primary age kids,
right,
to begin with. So your classic sort of soccer centres or football participation classes, and majority of that would have been primary age kids. And then when I went over to America, we done a wee bit more with sort of youths and team camps, and that then gave me a wee bit of a flavour of actually coaching a team. And then for a short spell, actually, my my friend's his dad runs a football club in Edinburgh, and they asked us to start taking their under-16s team. So me and my mate were taking the under-16s at boys' club, and it was really enjoyable. It was challenging, but I think because of the age that we were at, we could connect quite well with these kids, and they were totally bought into what we were doing, and it was really enjoyable. And I think from then on, I thought, yeah, this is something I want to be more involved in.
Did you feel like, because I always like I said to you before, I kind of the real main age range I coached for my whole time was probably about 6 to 12, and then I did have a high school team, like I said to you, that obviously is like 14, 15 to 18. I did coach that as well, so I did get a bit of a mix. But did you feel like when you were coaching the kids, did you want to always get to the point where you were coaching like a U16 team, and obviously now you're at Bonnyrigg doing the first team, or did you want to do the kids?
Do you know what? I don't think I ever went in with any ideas of who I wanted to work. I don't think I've seen it as, right, I'll go and work with the under 10s and then hopefully then under 12s and 14s and just work my way up. I just enjoyed the coaching. I loved going on a pitch and just working with a group of players, whether that be kids or adults, and coming up with sessions that hopefully they enjoyed. And I just kind of felt like, right, well, see where that takes me. And I think because you tend to start off working with the youngest kids, it teaches you that valuable thing about being enthusiastic. I think sometimes being Scottish, we can come across quite dour and very sarcastic at times. When actually, if you go in with young kids, they don't understand sarcasm, and I probably learned this harsh lesson when I was in America of how we speak as well, and how important your communication is, and that they understand you. So all these little things I was probably learning as you go, and you're not thinking, oh, well, where will this get me in 5 years? I just used to try and just develop, and I think working with kids is a great way of making mistakes as a coach that probably doesn't have too big an impact. You can go and learn things, you can see things that work, things that don't work, and you go, right, okay, I'll change that for next time. So I think even now I still coach kids of primary age and some of the development groups that they have, and I love it. I just love the enthusiasm that they come in with at that age. When they start going into the youth ages, the kids change, their personalities and their moods can be completely different. So it's how you can then engage with those kids who maybe sometimes are coming to sessions and not that motivated, so it keeps you on your toes. And then I think where I'm at now with Bonnyrigg, I think I always thought, right, I missed from playing days of the buzz of a Saturday and playing for something, playing for points, playing for cups, and that's where you get that feeling again of when you played, of what 3 points or a win on a Saturday might mean. So yeah, that's probably where I thought, yeah, I would like to get back and involved in the adults game, and just for myself to be able to learn and know how to work with adults, how to communicate with them, and how to deliver sessions that they're going to get something from and enjoy.
Yeah, no, I think that I would, like, what I would say that I didn't do a lot of is have a decent amount of a mix between the ages I was coaching, which I think is important for all the things you've just said. Like, you learn so much from coaching the young kids, and then when they're like 12, 13, it's a different story as they're growing up, going through like puberty and getting big, and then as you get to 14, 15, 16, it's more tactical, and like you say, it's a bit more about the buzz of the game day on Saturday. And there's so many different things that you can learn if you do all those kind of areas. And I think that, like, it's important to experience all that, and you're going to stand in better stead if you do all that as a coach. I think that if you want to do anything, you should look to mix it up as best as you can like that.
I think as well as if you see those different ages, you get an appreciation of a journey that a player goes on. So some kids will start later than others, so it might seem like they're behind, but others will grow quicker, they'll become more physical, and that gives them a massive advantage. So those kids that are maybe smaller are dealing with that physical challenge all the time. So like that develops a bit of character and resilience in them, where they're constantly at a disadvantage, and how does that build them mentally to deal with football as they get older. And I think then once you arrive at an adult and you see that player who's, I wouldn't say always complete, but you've got an understanding of the journey that they've been on, and where you can hopefully help them and support them where they need it.
And I think it helps. I mean, obviously I didn't have this too, but I think it helps that maybe you being younger were in somewhat of that environment, and kind of understand what it takes when you get to that point too. Obviously that's something I don't understand as a player. I get it from a coaching point of view and a competition point of view. I understand it, but I wasn't in that area as a player, so I wouldn't be able to give as much advice as maybe someone like you could, that's played at a higher level, that's done that. And I think that that's also another bow to your string, so to speak, is you played at that level, so you can give that experience to the kids, which is huge, because it's constantly an uphill battle for them, right? Like you get to this point, and then there's another ladder you have to climb to get to here, and then it's there's a lot that goes into it. Like, you don't just rock up to a pro club and that's it, you're good. You need to continue to keep working hard every single day and go through the ups and downs, and be able to navigate yourself through it as best as you can.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I've coached within a few different youth academies with Livingston, Hibs, and even Hearts for a short spell. And there's probably countless examples of kids who come through the academy system, and they've got fantastic attitudes. Their commitment to applying themselves every day is terrific, and it's quite sad, because when you see them get to that older age and it's getting close to can they make the breakthrough or not, and they don't, and you think they have done everything. They've done absolutely everything they possibly could to try and get them to the top level, but it's still such a difficult thing to break through into as a first team and establish themselves there. And there's so many factors that can come into it that they can't always control. And that's where it's, as I say, you sometimes just find your level. They're maybe just that 1 or 2% short on something that denies them that opportunity of maybe playing at a top level.
Do you think, I spoke a little bit about this with like Mike and the guys at Gullen, do you think that, I mean, I think this is a vital age in any country in the world, but because of what our culture is like, right? Like growing up, when you hit 14, 15, you're out at the park with your mates, maybe doing some things you shouldn't be doing, right? And I think a lot of people get lured into that. I certainly seen friends of mine that get lured into it, that were with us at the park on a Friday night, and they're playing for, you know, whoever they're, you know, Livingston or whoever it is, and you're like, in my head, I'm thinking to all these guys, like, I wouldn't be doing that, but it's easy to say if I'm not in that situation. But I think we lose a lot of people there because of the fear of missing out with your friends and all that goes along with it. And it must be extremely difficult because when you're at that age, you don't want to miss out. But like we've been saying, that's the part where you have to kind of look, if you can, longer term, or have someone, a coach that's, you know, advising you the right way to look longer term at this and see where you're at. Do you think that that's like a big age where we lose a lot of kids in that kind of area?
Probably. I think it's like anything. There's more distractions there for them. There's other things to do, and it's hard. Sometimes peer pressure comes into it with friends as well. Of if you're 14 or 15 and they're pushing you to come out and hang out with them, and you're thinking, well, no, I don't think that's the best thing to do when they've maybe got training or games and whatnot, that it can be a difficult situation to be in, and you probably need quite a strong character that says, no, that's not for me. But yeah, there's probably everybody would give examples of kids that they played with when they were younger, either their pals or players that were in other teams who had everything. Everybody, all the clubs were wanting to sign them, and for whatever reason, it just never materialised, probably because the distractions were there, that they then didn't focus so much on the football or lost a little bit of interest in it, that they then didn't ever probably achieve what potential they maybe had.
So it's a big thing. I've been doing a little bit of thinking since I've come home, and I wonder that if there's a way we could help that out with kind of almost giving more opportunities to coaches. So for example, like you can correct me if I'm wrong because you know the setup way better than me here, but from people I've spoke to, I mean, if you want to kind of do something, like you said, you start with the community stuff. I mean, it's not a full-time job. There's no way, like, you're doing 3 hours a night. You're maybe picking up like 30, 40 quid or something. I don't know, something along those lines. And I just think if there was a way that we could like almost have an avenue for even people my age to be a coach and maybe work with kids those age that aren't far removed from them, to maybe help steer these kids, you know, to stay on path when they're in that area. Because right now it's difficult to just show up or be a volunteer and, you know, come rush from work and put your stuff down, and you miss out on, you don't notice a lot of things when you're in that mindset. And I think when it's, you know, certainly for me when I was in America, it was a full-time job for me. That's what I did 7 days a week. I did nothing else. I lived off of it. So I was able to like constantly be focused on it and looking at the kids and seeing the kids 3 times a week and helping them through not just football, other things, right? Like kids would come up to me and say, you know, this, you know, having some troubles at home or whatever it is. And I just think that we maybe in this country miss that because there's maybe not an avenue for coaches to be able to be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, and what we have, certainly from what I know in my role in East Lothian, is some of the community clubs are like terrific in what they do. They're huge organisations, but they are very heavily reliant on volunteers. So that always poses its challenges, but without those volunteers, those clubs would not be able to cater for so many kids. And some of the clubs have got girls sections, boys sections, disability sections. They've got hundreds and hundreds of kids signed up in their club, and they do loads of fantastic work. And I think we are getting there. There's 1 or 2 clubs already starting to employ staff in the club. So I think that is the right thing to do. I think that extra bit of support, that extra bit of expertise, just take some of the burden off the volunteers, and hopefully that's the way things progress. I know clubs are also using external coaching providers, so young guys that got their own coaching companies, and they're bringing them in to deliver more specialist sessions at certain ages or for certain players or teams. It's probably giving them that extra bit of support as well. So like the community clubs is massively changed in in the past few years have just grown and grown and grown. They're far more sustainable. You don't get too many cases now of just a random team pops
Yeah.
up and they appear in your league and you're
Right.
training
Okay.
up, and then after 8 games they've folded and they've disappeared again. The community clubs now are really, really well organised, well
Good.
run
That's
groups.
good.
So
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's really good to hear. Like I say, I haven't been in the environment for close to 10 years now. So, one of the good things about, trying to do this and speaking to people like yourself and hopefully other people is to get a bit more of a grasp on it too, because like you just said there's no way it's still the same as it was when I played, when I was finished playing at 19 and still being around the area. So, that's interesting. I mentioned this as well before, but I've obviously, and you have too, I guess, I've seen the kind of pay to play model in America, and which allows people like me to go out there and make a living off of it and have a career, and it's fantastic. But there's also a lot of downsides to that, right? Which we've talked about, where the parents are shelling out a lot of money. There's high expectations, and anytime there's a lot of money involved, things start to get a bit cloudy, and it becomes business and it becomes competition, which is life. But there's pros and cons to both, and the volunteer stuff's great because you get people showing up that are really passionate about wanting to help the kids, and you just get a different feel depending on which way you go with it. And I always just wonder, is there some way, like anything, is there a way that we can meet in the middle? But it sounds like what's going on now is kind of somewhat doing that. You've got that mix of the volunteers, but starting to, like you said, maybe employ some more like full-time people.
They'll probably always still have the challenge of meeting parent expectations. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges in youth football is being able to manage those expectations, and that's at any level. The kids plays football and the parents expect certain things all the time, no matter how unrealistic that might be for coaches at times. But I certainly think the community clubs are going a long way to improving the game in this country.
That's class. So what is it exactly, in terms of like the East Lothian coordinator stuff? So like what do you do in that role? Like what is it?
So as I said before, it's a partnership between East Lothian Council and the Scottish FA. So a lot of that work I'll deliver coach education courses, so our level 1 courses, I'll deliver those. We'll do a lot of club development support. So all our clubs in East Lothian, they'll have my support, whether that's to support coaches, whether it's the more off-field things, the more administrative tasks, or the club themselves, if they're looking to grow and develop certain aspects, then we will support them with that. We do, within East Lothian, we've got a couple of what we call elite performance player programs. So we've got a development squads for boys and girls in primary 7. And then we've got a performance athletes in schools program for secondary schools. And this goes across all our sort of core sports. So we've got rugby in there, we've got football, we've got hockey, we've got athletics. There's a whole host of sports there that within the East Lothian Sports Development Team, we've got a performance program there that can supplement what these kids are doing with their clubs to hopefully help them achieve a good level in their sport. And then we've still got participation centres that we will run, soccer centres. That's almost the first step on the ladder, and that we work quite close with active schools to deliver those. I think the way that the clubs have grown so much, that you could probably join some football clubs at the age of 2 and be on that journey all the way through to an adult team, to even playing walking football. So I think it's a lot is now sort of geared towards that club support and how we can continue to support them as much as we can. And then we're involved in a bit of school football as well. We run some primary school football festivals and youth games each year as well. So there's that element to it as well, where we're trying to improve school football at the same time.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I know for a fact, certainly like my cousin, who I moved out to, who helped me kind of move out to America. I remember like him and his kind of all his pals, what you're saying. I remember their kind of journey was like going through doing the schools and and that's how they started and going to primary schools and everything. And I think that's also a cool way in terms of, like, you know, when you're a younger coach to travel a little bit and go to different schools and experience different kids. You know, my cousin would do like Gullen and North Berwick and then go to Preston Pans, and there's just a different mixture of kids and everything. And I think that's a cool way to kind of get into it and experience some challenges, I'm sure, going to the schools and doing that.
Yeah, I think that's key in anything, especially if you want a coach. I think different experiences will just help you and round you off. Meeting different challenges. There'll be the kids who do not like football, do not want to participate in football no matter what it is. So how are you going to engage them when already their barriers are up and they don't want to participate in something? So use a coach. How can you change that situation? What things can you come up with that can change that, so then it makes you adaptable to it? And I think that's one of the things I found when I started working with adult teams is, like, they will tell you, the players will just tell you straight when they don't enjoy something, or they think something's know what they enjoy, or don't understand the purpose of it. They'll just tell you straight, and I love that honesty, because then that makes me go and go, right, okay, why didn't that work? What needs to be different about it? Or how do I change it in a way that they will enjoy it and will get something from it? Whereas sometimes the kids that they'll not be as honest as that when they don't like something, and they'll just go along with it. So I think those different experiences, different places, just helps you develop that better understanding and way of adapting what you do to meet their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm sure you've been in the same boat. I'm sure everyone has been, but I've definitely met some people along the way that want to be coaches that are starting out that don't want to start there. Like, they think that they should start at like wherever it is here. And I just think it's really, really important to do that. Like, earn your stripes almost like anything. And you learn so much from it that you can then use 10 years down the line that you would never think you could use. And I just think it's hugely important to start off there and earn your stripes and start at the bottom, so to speak, and coach the kids and do the school stuff. Even if you have a bigger goal of wanting to coach adults or academies or whatever it is, the more experience you get, the better it's going to be. And like I said to you before we hit record, certainly on that piece of paper when you're trying to get in somewhere, along with the badges, if you do all that stuff, you've worked with, you're so, what's the word? Like, you can move around. There's so many options for you to do because you've worked in the schools, you've worked with the 6-year-olds, you've worked with the 10-year-olds and all that type of stuff. And just to add all that to your CV is immensely important. And I'm sure someone like you, if you're employing someone and you see all that experience, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I always remember reading about Alex Ferguson talking about like his ex-players who go and get opportunities to be in management and whatnot. And one of the things he always said to them is, don't let the not having the coaching badges stop you.
Yeah.
Quite often it's like, oh, well, play at a good level, you don't need it. Why has it become important? Whereas actually in a lot of cases it is the requirement. So you wouldn't want an opportunity to pass you by because you've not then gained the qualifications. That should almost be the easy part. Just go and get that bit done, and then whatever comes there, you're already ready and you're in place for it. So I think I'd always take that attitude and try and get through those coaching qualifications as quickly as I could, and then just see what then follows after that. At least then you know you've already got that, and now all you're doing is adding the experiences to the qualifications that hopefully puts you in a place where opportunities come up in the future.
Absolutely. And I always got told by people that did those things that, of course, they learned things on the course and it was great, but the more important thing that they all found after doing these courses was the connections you actually made. The people that you met at the courses, at the places you became friends with, and all of a sudden 2 years later, this guy now has a job at this club and he's contacting you because you guys got along well and you worked well together. And that's another element to it too, where you go and you meet people and you can make these connections doing all these courses. You never know where people are going to end up, that was interesting.
Right. Best example, probably Ian Cathro in that one with Gomez over here doing their coaching licenses, and just from there, one person gets an opportunity and straight away come and join you on their coaching team and look where they went, where they've been, the clubs that they've managed and coached with. It's brilliant, and I think that's it. It's what you go and you go on some of these courses and you're totally taking out your comfort zone. You maybe don't know many people there, and you're put out in front of an audience or your peers, and that challenges you. But you've also got the opportunity there to bounce off other coaches and discuss your ideas, and that's probably where you get your connections and understand whether you're on similar wavelengths to people that then you think actually if you're working with a team in the future, I definitely want to work alongside those people because they've got the similar sort of ideas as what you have, or see the game in the same way.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these guys had told me from what they saw was, whether sometimes I guess on the courses, you're being taught to coach in a specific way to pass the course, right? And whether you agree or disagree with it, just do it how they're asking you to do it. And a lot of the guys used to tell me that there would be people that would disagree with the instructor, whoever it is in the course, and all right, maybe they are right, but at the same time, it's not the right way to go about it. Just do what you've got to do, do it, and it's be open-minded to other ways of coaching and everything. I was really fortunate in America. We had this guy called Albert Puig come in from Barcelona for about 2-3 years and to kind of run the coach education stuff, more so on the academy side of things, which I wasn't involved in. I was in the youth, but it still trickled down to the youth. And he did a 2-day course that was just absolutely fantastic. It was mind blowing in terms of the Barcelona way that everyone wants to play right now. I'm pretty sure I've still got all the notes and everything that we got from that. But that was a great course, and again, just meeting people there and being open minded to some new ideas. And there's a lot of people that left. I remember standing outside hearing a lot of guys disagreeing wholeheartedly with everything he was saying, and I think it's a load of rubbish. And it's well, and that guy did work at La Masia, so I mean he's getting something right, So it's just important to always remember that there's more than one way to coach, and I think that sometimes people think their way is the only way.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you go on the courses, you're so hung up about you want to pass and you want to get the qualification, and that is in a lot of cases the be all and end all, but you have to remember you're going on there to learn and to improve, and I think you're right, the open-mindedness to that is so important. The tutors and the lecturers that you get will always try and find something else to add, something else to offer. You're not going to deliver a session and they're just going to say, oh, brilliant, you're a great coach. They're there to teach you and improve you as best they possibly can. And I think that willingness to learn when you come on these things is so important, because there'll be something that you've not forgot. There's something you've not thought about, or another thing that you could do that can make it better. And that's all they're trying to do is make you better. It's not for anything else. They're there to support those individuals as much as they can. And certainly that was my experience. They want to challenge you, but it is without an aim of making you better. How can you do things better than what you've done? You're never ever. Players will always say they probably never play the perfect game. No. Even Messi scoring a hat-trick, there'll be something that happens in a game that he'll still think, I wish I'd done that differently or whatever else. And I think that's the same in coaching. You'll never have the perfect training session. You'll always come off and think, what could I have improved? And I think that's the same way that you go on a coaching course, that you're there to learn, and there'll be things that will make you better if you're prepared to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Without kind of putting you on the spot, is there anything that you think that, at the moment, you're doing all these Lothian, stuff and going around these Lothian, and it also sounds fantastic. Is there still an area where you think that, in terms of the youth setup, that, certainly as the Edinburgh, Lothian area as a whole, that we could maybe do a bit better on, that there's still more work to do? I mean, I'm sure there's a few areas, but anything in particular?
I think it's difficult because I think the clubs do so much good work and they cater for so many young people to play football. I think back to playing as a kid, and you just had one team at an age group. Some of these clubs have got 4 and 5 teams, maybe more, in an age group. So they're doing loads and loads of fantastic work. But sometimes when you become so big, it can be difficult to manage and difficult to have the quality control there all the time, and it'll pose them different challenges. So yeah, I think I don't think there's anything that you would say to change. I think the opportunity is there. Certainly at grassroots, it's just making sure these kids are enjoying the football. And
yeah,
I think sometimes we look at football and it's all about who can make it as a professional player. I always say when I'm on these courses, the biggest success for you as a coach is how long they stay in the game, and whether that's they become an adult and they're playing amateur football, whether they become a coach, whether they are volunteering to take their own kids' team in the years to come. I think the biggest success that you can have an impact on them is how long do they want to stay in the game, because if you as a coach have made that such an enjoyable experience for them over the years, then chances are they will. It's a part of their life. Doesn't matter if they get married and have kids. That football love will stay part of their life. And to me, that's the ultimate success. It's not always how many kids went on to become a professional football player. It's
agreed.
how many kids are still involved in the game in some way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that I said this to one of my friends I was chatting to on this the other day, that I think when you start out certainly coaching, you have your own kind of career and some sort of an idea in your head and where you want to go, right? And when you start out, you're doing it, and then like you say, when you get into it, you get a little bit older, you start to realize that you're doing more than just coach these kids. And what you just said there is you're trying to help them stay in the game, and how long can they stay in the game, and not even necessarily football. Like, does it just give them an enthusiasm for a sport, whether it be rugby or whatever it is? And I agree with you. I think that's absolutely got to be the most important goal that you can go as a coach, is how long can I keep these kids doing this, because it keeps them away from other distractions. The amount of, sure you're the same, the amount of, some of the best times I've had in my life were playing football, you know, with my friends on a Saturday and all that type of stuff. So it teaches you so much, teaches you teamwork, it teaches you responsibility if you mess up in a moment that maybe concedes a goal, and how to move on with it and work as a team. So it's hugely important that that's one of your big goals as a coach. I couldn't agree anymore. Absolutely.
The social things that like massive. I think back, like the pals I'm still in touch with from when I was younger. It's not the kids on the street. It's the kids I played football with, from clubs or whatever. Those that I'm still in touch with, the majority of them are all through football. So I see that myself as a parent now with my own kids, and
yep.
Totally know the value that brings of those social skills that will develop for them, being in a team, being in a sport. Just playing a sport, I think, can bring so much positives to them. So yeah, I think that's probably the other side you forget about, is a lot of people just play for the social aspect. It's not necessarily the winning or losing or anything else. It's just playing a sport with their pals, and that brings them a bit of physical activity. It keeps them fit, but it just gives them their laughs and their enjoyment with their friends that they need.
Massively. And I always used to try and get that across to some parents too, some kids I coach. You could see that's why they were in it. They just like to show up and be with their friends, and they didn't have the drive to go on. And of course, when you start with those kids, you try and see if you can get that drive into them. But like you say, some of them just want to do it for the social aspect. And, you know, I found that sometimes parents just didn't accept that. They were like, well, no, like, he does want to be competitive. I'm like, but I can see he's not. He just wants to show up and be with his friends, and that's completely okay. Like, that's probably one of the best parts about it, is just being with your friends. Your kid doesn't always have to have the drive to want to be the best. If he's just enjoying being with his pals, then that's cool too. And find the right place, the right club, the right level for him to do that.
Absolutely. And if that pressure is coming from the parents of keep pushing them harder and harder, and then they want the coach to do the same, eventually that the kid will probably reach a breaking point and think,
yeah,
I just want to relax and enjoy playing, whereas it's constant pressure for them.
Absolutely. So I wanted to touch on Bonnyrigg a little bit, go into a bit of detail on that to finish off with, just because, you know, that's completely different to everything we've just talked about. We're working with kids, the environment is different. The goals are different, the ambitions are different, the training's going to be different. So like what like level, what league is this Bonnyrigg team at?
So we're in the Lowland League,
Okay.
which is just beneath the Professional League Two.
Okay.
So what should normally happen within the pyramid structure, it's been a bit more difficult in lockdown with football being suspended
Yeah.
and cancelled and whatnot. Generally, the top of the Lowland League and the top of the Highland League have a playoff, and whoever wins that playoff would then play the bottom of League Two to see if there would be a promotion or relegation into the professional league. So Edinburgh City managed to do that a few years ago, and Berwick a couple of years ago came down into the Lowland League from the professional leagues after, I think it was Cove. I beat them in the playoffs as well. So, there's been a couple of teams to do it, and that's probably the ambition for ourselves at Bonnyrigg. We've originally were a junior side and played in the East Juniors League. Always competed quite well. We're always challenging and winning the leagues there. So, like a lot of clubs in the East, a couple of years back, made the shift into the East of Scotland League and the pyramid structure. So we've just been unfortunate that first year we were in the East of Scotland League, we got into the Lowland League, and then the past 2 seasons have obviously been interrupted without being able to finish through a normal season to see where we were ended up, which has been a bit of a frustration. We've certainly got a very good group of players, and Robbie and Dave have done a really good job in building that team and pulling it together. So yeah, it's frustrating that we've not had that chance to really go and conclude some of our seasons and see how it would finish up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What's like so is the age like 18, 19 to like late 30s?
Yeah, early 30s. Yeah. So a real mix of ages, a real mix of experience there. There's guys that have played at high level, guys that have been full-time players previously, and then you've got some young boys there that have came through at different levels as well. So yeah, it's good. It's they're a good group, a hard-working group. They've got a real good ethos and team spirit about them, and they've certainly could progress a lot further, I feel, from the time that I've been working with them, if the opportunities are there for them.
Do you typically at that level? I don't know how long you've been in it for coaching wise, but does a group stay together for a decent amount of time? Is there a lot of switching about, like, dependent? I know at that point in life, maybe folk have got kids and maybe they move house, and there's a lot of factors to it, right? But do you get to stick with a group for a good 2-3 years, or does it mix up quite a lot?
Well, I've been there be about 3 or 4 years now,
Okay.
And there's probably a core group that have been there probably even before I joined the club, and I think that is probably been key to the successes that they have. They're all very good players. They're all very good friends at the same time. So you'd probably argue that they run the changing room. They'll keep on top of players if they're slacking or letting things go. They'll make sure that everybody's pushing each other to the same levels all the time, and that's probably been a big key to the success that they've had over the years. Is that core group, the performances that they turn in, and yeah, it doesn't matter the challenge that seems to be put in front of them. It doesn't matter the opponent. The bigger the occasion, the better they seem to do. So yeah, I've been very fortunate with that group of players and what they've achieved.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Are you back training and playing now that everything's back?
No, so our last game we played Dundee in the Scottish Cup, and we were unfortunate to get put out in extra time there. And that was the last game we played back at the beginning of January. So they suspended the leagues after that, and we're hoping to find out very soon whether the season will be able to conclude or whether they'll come up with some alternative. We're still waiting on that. We'll hopefully know very soon. Though we've been sitting in limbo for a long time, and probably much to the frustration to a lot of people, but particularly the players, because they're out there trying to train on their own, and it's not the same as your team sessions too.
Nah, it's not as easy to go for a run by yourself or something, is it? Compared to showing up to training, and it's a different mindset. Especially, I'm sure those guys are working, and like I say, some have kids, and you get to training, and that's your focus. But it's just a lot more difficult to do it.
And the social aspect as well is, I think, even at this level, it's not just total professionalism all the time. It is that social aspect where they're probably all very good close pals and being in each other's company and playing a sport that they love, like that in itself probably so important to them. And without that, it will be difficult going out and trying to do your own runs. And I think as well, when you play such a competitive sport, it's one thing, right, keep yourself ticking over, but you want to be actually have a focus and a purpose of what you're aiming for. And at the moment, because they don't have a date for anything, it can be very difficult trying to just tick over and still be pushing yourself at the same time to the limits you want to be at.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you like with regards to teams that you play against, and you know, what you guys try and do? You know, you certainly see at, I would say, definitely at youth level from what I know, and obviously you see on the TV, do a lot of teams try and play football, or is it a mixture of being quite direct? I mean, in terms of the level of play, what is it like?
I think you can get a mix. You get a real mix. There's certainly some teams in that league who will really try and play. They'll build out from the back. They'll take it quite deep from the goalkeeper, and they will try and play. There'll be other teams who will be very direct and be very physical. And it'll just vary. Sometimes the conditions and the pitches will have an impact on that. But there's probably more and more teams now who've got their own 3G pitches as well, which obviously encourages them to try and get the ball down in place. So yeah, I'm probably like a lot of leagues, there'll be a mix there of teams that want to get it down and try and play, and you have a really good game of football, and there'll be other ones where it might be more of a battle, and you need to play a bit more fight ball than football at times before you can get the opportunity to play. But it's good to have those differences. If it was all the same all the time, then it might not have the same sort of enjoyment or that keep you on your toes of what to expect. Different teams will challenge you in different ways, and it's how you can cope with that.
Yeah, you need that. I think you need that to be better coach, better player. You've got to almost, not week by week necessarily, but throughout the season when you're playing, you need to play against teams that play different ways, and so you can learn how to coach against it, adapt to it in the game as a player. It's important. I mean, I certainly, you know, remember going to watch like amateur level here, and it wasn't the best. Like, it was a lot of fighting, a lot of ball in the air, and you know, it's a good energy on like a Saturday for people being there and then going to the pub after. But in terms of like the football, it was pretty brutal. Like, it wasn't enjoyable.
I think as well in the Lowland League, some of the teams now at the top are recruiting really good players from a higher level. So again, as a coach, you're watching the way the teams play, but then you're looking at the individuals and some of the qualities and strengths they have, and you're thinking, right, how do you combat that? It's how do you the player that's directly opposing them, how do they deal with those strengths that their opponent has, and how can you try and help them to deal with it?
How often do you guys get to train?
A little bit better.
How often?
Twice a week.
Yeah. Twice a week. Okay, so you get twice a week for what, an hour and a half? How long is the session?
An hour and a half. Tuesday, Thursday, got an hour and a half. We'll meet at the ground beforehand, and there's an opportunity there to discuss anything we might need to, as well in the lead up to any games. But yeah, an hour and a half on the pitch.
Is that like a rule? Is that just the time that everyone has to commit to it? Would you guys as coaches like to do more? Would the players like to do more if possible? Like, or is it just so many factors that twice a week's about the right number?
Yeah, just access and facilities as well. So it's almost like those evenings we're able to get a half pitch, and like for adults, that's probably the minimum that you need to be able to deliver that. The sessions that you would want. So yeah, down to facilities is probably your because we use the community high school's pitch. We don't have our own 3G pitch that we can use.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering that because it's like, like I'm just thinking about it in terms of my experience of I was coaching kids that were 10 years old, that were training 3 times a week for an hour and a half, so it's just interesting to see the time that those guys would get. But again, I know it's different at that time. Like you say, you got the facilities that are tough and all that.
And guys are working as well. They've all got different careers
Yeah.
and jobs of their own. So to try and do any more would be a challenge for them. So yeah, it's probably just about enough. We would probably love to do more, but there's so many other factors that would make that difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys is it again, without trying to put you on the spot, but do you guys have from a coach point of view, is there like a structured plan? Is it kind of taken by week basis, depending on how the game goes with regards to what you do at training, or do you have something that you want to stick to and just keep working with it?
Probably a bit of both. There'll be a basic structure that we'll work on. There will be similar things that we will do week to week. And yeah, there'll be times where, depending on how games will went or upcoming opponents, then we might look to add in certain things to the session that might help with that. Drip feed little things in there that'll probably help when it comes to the games. If there's certain things we maybe see in an opponent that we're playing that we think that's an area we exploit, we'll maybe do a little bit of work on that within that week's training. Also, if there's other aspects where we maybe think it's not been so good, then we'll maybe go and work on that as well. But yeah, there'll be a basic sort of structure we follow Tuesday and Thursday, and then we'll just add in little bits here and there that we think are appropriate at the time.
Does it sometimes get to the point where just coaching that team feels like a full-time job for you?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think being a coach is probably slightly different to if you're the manager. If you were to be speaking to Robbie, he probably would tell you it's like a full-time job with the amount of phone calls and things that he probably has to deal with. So that's probably where myself and Dave, who lead on the training most of the time, with a bit of input from Robbie, will help him with that. But for me, yeah, we'll have our discussions out with the training nights and the games. But yeah, I'm quite fortunate in that, despite that I don't feel it's too much of a workload where I'm constantly dealing with it. But it's always as a football addict, you're always thinking about different things for your sessions or games or whatnot that you're looking at input when you come together for those sessions. So it's not that you just rock up on a Tuesday and a Thursday evening and that's the only time you're thinking about it. There'll be other things you're looking at out with that. But no,
of course.
I certainly don't feel it's an overload of work, that's for sure.
Do the guys get paid? Like, is there some players that get paid? Is it not paid?
They're all paid. The club has a budget for paying the players, and that's the manager's job then, and the club to then go and agree what players are paid. But they'll all be paid. So I think that helps. I think if you're paying something, then you're valuing them, and you're making it worthwhile for them. And then I think that also makes them a little bit more accountable when it comes to their attitude and their application as well. Of the club are fully supporting you and fully valuing you. Then so there's an expectancy of what they're then offering in return.
Yeah, definitely. No, that sounds cool. I'd love to, whenever you guys get back out training again, I'd love to just come watch and see it, because I've not really ever worked at that level, worked with that age group, worked in that environment, and just to see what the level's like. I've not, obviously with COVID, I've not had a chance to go watch any games really. So it'd be cool to come along and stuff. Yeah,
not a problem.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Sean, I think that's pretty much, I think we covered a lot there. I think that was a good talk. I don't really have anything else that's sticking off the top of my head that I would like to ask you. I don't know if you have anything that maybe we haven't talked about that you would like to mention, or.
No, nothing that I can think of. It's been enjoyable chat, and thanks again for inviting me on, and hopefully there's something worthwhile there to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there definitely is. Honestly, it's one of those where sometimes I do this, and then when I get to the end and I rewatch it, you forget about some things that are said in there. So there'll definitely be some good things in there. But we'll stay on for. I'll hit stop in a second, but we'll stay on for a couple of minutes and just chat about it. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And again, thanks to Mike Mackey who kind of hooked us up and put me in touch with you. That was really nice of him. And yeah, I'd love to have you again on sometime in the future when things have progressed a little bit more with Bonnyrigg and you're back more full time and in the flow. I think it would be cool to have another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to get involved in that.
Perfect. Well, listen, Sean, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll chat again soon.
Good man. Thank you.
Perfect. Cheers.